Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here with Raquel King and with Dr. Stephen Caldwell. So, how would you describe the world of composers like Bach or William Byrd? Or I believe there's two other composers that are going to be featured in this program, particularly to someone who's hearing their choral music for the first time.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because their music is shaped very much by the political environment in which they lived, in the religious environment in which they lived, and how the political and religious environment collided, which sounds an awful familiar, like what's going on today. Johann Sebastian Bach, for example, he's a staunch Lutheran. And he was born 1685, well after the Protestant Reformation, and he lived in the Germanic lands, in the northern Germanic lands that were predominantly Lutheran. So his life post the 30 Years' War never really conflicted too much with Southern Europe's Catholicism. And what Bach wanted to do was create what he thought was a well-regulated church musician. And so all he wanted to do was to make sure that the Lutheran churches had Lutheran music in them for Lutheran people. That was his singular focus. Um, and so he took all of that talent that he had and he focused it on that singular thing. He didn't write any operas. He wrote one we would consider a Catholic mass, but he didn't really write it. It was assembled through self-borrowings and other things that he had written at the end of his life. He didn't write in the traditional genres that many of the other major composers were writing at the time. He didn't write any major oratorios. He just has the handful of passions, that were intended specifically for the church service. And to remove them from the church service and to make them into concert pieces, we're already taking kind of a step away because we are hearing that music from point A to point B without anything in between. When you put this music in the liturgy, you realize that our idea of a concert where everybody just sits down and listens to the music from point A to point B and then stops is not what they had in mind. There was other things happening within the liturgical service. Then we go back to William Byrd. Well, William Byrd's music was a conflict between the fact that the Church of England had just separated from the Roman Catholic Church, but at the time, most of the people in England were Catholic until Henry VIII said, "Poof, you're no longer Catholic, now you're Anglican." And William Byrd said, "Well, wait a minute, I'm still Catholic, I think," but he was employed officially by the Church of England. And so here's a guy who was writing on both sides of the fence.